In the middle of nowhere, at a company party, I found myself in the role of a middle-aged man, serving drinks to my boss and attempting to maintain his good spirits. My 36th birthday was approaching, while my friends and colleagues were steadily settling down in matrimony. Meanwhile, my own life remained devoid of any romantic spark. I was acutely aware that merely waiting for love to appear was a futile endeavor, but the memory of someone from my past kept me from actively seeking a partner. Once my boss concluded his lengthy monologue, I seized the opportunity to excuse myself and head to the restroom. Yearning for a breath of fresh air and some space, I meandered down the dimly lit hallway of the bar. That's when it happened. I bumped into her. The person I thought I'd never forget, my high school sweetheart. Though time had endowed her with a more mature aura, it was unmistakably Emily. She seemed to recognize me too, coming to a standstill in the middle of the corridor. "Mark!" She called out my name and then fell into silence. It had been over a decade since our falling out, and our interactions were long relegated to the past. Uncertain of how to approach this unexpected reunion, I stammered, "I'm here for dinner with friends." With that, our conversation came to an abrupt end. We parted ways with a simple, "Well then." Emily and I had dated throughout high school and even as we pursued different colleges. However, our relationship came to a bitter end during the stressful job hunting phase. The fault was mine to bear. Emily, an accomplished and beautiful woman, attended a prestigious university and secured a job early on. In stark contrast, I attended a mediocre college and struggled to find employment. My senior year was marked by frustration as job offers eluded me, and I, in a fit of jealousy, directed harsh words at Emily. I accused her of not understanding my struggles and of looking down on me. I even uttered far more hurtful remarks. It was only natural for Emily to eventually grow weary of my behavior, and we parted ways. Subsequently, I landed a job at my current company in my 20s, but communication between Emily and me ceased entirely. During this period, a high school classmate informed me that Emily Dunn had married and relocated to Chicago due to her husband's job transfer. A complex blend of emotions washed over me, part relief, part wistfulness. Knowing that she was happy elsewhere was sufficient for me. Upon learning of her marriage, I believed it was time for me to move on as well. I embarked on a few blind dates, but none of them seemed to click. Now, about a week after our chance encounter at the bar, I found myself in my favorite cafe after work. I had developed a penchant for buying coffee beans from this establishment and brewing coffee at home on my days off, a fondness that had its roots in my college days. I had become discerning in my bean selection and grinding technique. As I entered the cafe, intent on procuring a fresh batch of beans, there was Emily, indulging in a slice of cake. "This is quite the coincidence," I murmured, my surprise evident in my voice. "Are you here alone?" I asked, briefly explaining that I frequented the cafe for my coffee bean purchases. "Are you alone? Isn't your husband waiting at home? I didn't even know you were back from Chicago," I blurted out, my words stumbling over one another. Emily Lord's gaze rose, and she forced a smile as she opened her mouth to respond. "My husband passed away 4 years ago. I've been living in Chicago since then, and I've only recently moved back here," Emily explained gently. I felt a pang of remorse and hastily apologized. "I see, I'm sorry, that was thoughtless of me." I had no idea about her husband's passing. After this revelation, our conversation hit a stumbling block, and we bid our farewells, parting ways once again. Emily, now a widow living alone in San Francisco, was someone I wanted to connect with on a deeper level. However, I couldn't help but feel that I had no right to do so, given the hurtful words I'd used at the end of our relationship. About a month later, on a night during a turbulent typhoon, I had my third encounter with my ex-girlfriend and now widow Emily. My apartment was located beyond the train station, so I passed it daily on my way home from work. On this particular evening, the station was bustling with people, and the trains were halted due to delays caused by the storm. Amidst the chaos, I spotted Emily, taking shelter from the rain while speaking on her phone. Emily noticed me almost immediately and called out to me. "It's amazing we met again," she remarked. "Yeah, is the train stopped?" I inquired, concerned about her predicament. Emily nodded with a bitter smile. "Yes, it's stopped. I don't know when it'll start moving again. The buses and taxis are all packed, so it looks like I won't be able to get on. I tried calling a nearby hotel, but it's no good. It's hard to find a place that's open." Even though it was early spring, the nights were chilly, and I couldn't help but notice that Emily's clothes and hair were soaked. I offered her my handkerchief, saying, "Use this, you must be cold." "Thank you," she replied gratefully. I had an umbrella, but the rain and wind were so strong. When I had first encountered Emily, the rain and wind were still raging, and the sky threatened to open up again. I couldn't just leave her stranded with no way to get home or find a hotel. "Do you want to come to my place?" The words slipped out of my mouth before I could think, and I immediately regretted them. Why would she want to come to her ex-boyfriend's home, especially considering our past arguments? However, Emily's response was unexpected. "You're willing to let me stay?" She looked up at me with moist eyes. I felt a nervous flutter in my chest as I gazed into her more mature eyes, but they seemed to be silently pleading for help. "Sure, come on," I replied, and Emily smiled softly, visibly relieved. And so, Emily came to stay at my apartment. When we arrived home, I suggested that Emily, who was likely cold from getting wet, take a warm bath. Seeing her with wet hair, wearing my clothes as makeshift pajamas, stirred feelings in me. But I had no ulterior motives, so I tried to conceal my emotions. After drying her hair, Emily requested, "I'd like some coffee. Could you brew it for me? I've been missing it for a while." Her eyes fell on a bag of coffee beans and a grinder. I recalled the days when we were in college, dating, and I frequently made coffee for her. "Sure," I replied with a smile as I carefully ground the beans, all for Emily. She observed me with such keen interest that I couldn't help but ask, "Would you like to give grinding the beans a try?" Initially, Emily nodded, but then she hesitated and said, "Actually, I'll pass. I want you to do it, Mark. I've missed your coffee." Her words, whether mere courtesy or not, brought a smile to my face. As the coffee neared completion, I inquired about her preferences, asking, "Would you like it as a café au lait? Yes, you remember that, right?" Emily couldn't drink black coffee, and during our dating days, I always turned it into a café au lait by adding milk. Those memories remained vivid in my mind. "Of course I remember," I replied warmly, offering Emily the freshly brewed café au lait. Emily accepted the mug with both hands and brought it to her lips, savoring the moment. "Ah, it's delicious. The aroma is so soothing. I've been longing to taste it for over 10 years, holding back for more than a decade." The phrase "more than 10 years" seemed to carry significant weight. I poured myself a cup of black coffee just as I preferred it, a habit from my college days that persisted to this day. But the coffee we shared today, accompanied by Emily's presence, tasted even better than usual. After finishing our coffee, we contemplated our sleeping arrangements. In a playful manner, I asked, "I have only one bed. Is it okay if we sleep together?" I hoped to bring a smile to Emily's face, given her apparent guilt about staying over. I expected her to respond with something like, "No, that's not okay," given her demeanor. But her reply caught me off guard. "Okay," she said, looking at me with a solemn expression. I felt an instinctual urge to embrace Emily, though I knew it didn't necessarily signify romantic feelings. She had been grappling with loneliness since her husband's passing, and perhaps the stormy weather that evening had intensified her sense of isolation. I believed that if she spent the night in the same room, or worse, in the same bed with me, she might later regret it. Not just Emily, but I might as well. Despite caring about her deeply, I decided there was only one course of action to take. "Emily, I apologize for my inappropriate joke. You can sleep on the bed and I'll take the living room couch. I don't want you to feel any regret due to your current emotions," I expressed sincerely. Emily seemed to have anticipated my response, nodding without protest. "You're right. I'm sorry," she replied. Her agreement provided a sense of relief. Even though I had resolved not to let the moment sweep me away, considering that this might be the last time I saw Emily, I felt compelled to apologize for something I had wanted to say for a long time. "Emily, I'm sorry about when we broke up," I began, addressing an event that I had once referred to as an argument but now reevaluated. From the moment we started dating until our breakup, I had never found a single fault in Emily. Back in high school, I had even asked her why she would consider dating someone like me. At that time, just like now, I saw myself as an ordinary academically and athletically mediocre guy, while Emily was the epitome of charm, a model student, a teacher's favorite, and highly academic. I couldn't fathom what had balanced the equation between us. It turns out that Emily and I didn't actually meet for the first time in high school. We were in the same kindergarten class, a fact I had completely forgotten. As the story goes, I had apparently protected Emily when she was being bullied, making me a hero in her eyes from that point on. Emily moved away when we were in senior kindergarten, but she never forgot about me. I had no recollection of performing any heroic act, and I vaguely remembered helping a girl back then, but it felt more like I was trying to show off as a typical kindergartner. Emily used to recount our kindergarten days story multiple times after we started dating, and I initially found it endearing. However, by the time I was deep into my job hunt and facing rejection from company after company, I grew weary of hearing it. It seemed impossible that someone like me, who couldn't even secure a job, could be a hero. My frustration reached its peak after being rejected by the 10th company, and I was acutely aware of how much my alma mater mattered in the job hunting process. With no job offers coming my way, I felt like my worth as a person was being denied. Emily, who had already landed a job, tried to encourage me, but I was immature and found her kindness irritating. I lashed out at her saying, "Shut up, Emily, everything is so perfect for you. You've always been a top student, got into a good college, and found a job right away. You don't know what it feels like to be a failure like me." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she responded, "Don't talk like that about yourself, Mark. You're my hero." But my frustration was at its peak, and I bluntly told her to stop imposing her ideals on me and that I didn't want to hear her pointless stories anymore. I'll never forget the hurt look on Emily's face that day when she left with drooping shoulders. After that, I ignored Emily despite her attempts to apologize. I just wanted her to leave me alone. Then one day over the phone, she told me, "Let's break up." It was only natural considering the hurtful things I had said. All I could muster was a resigned, "I understand." As I was reminiscing about all this, Emily's voice brought me back to reality. She was laughing at my apology a decade late. "No, it's okay, it's not all your fault, you know. Looking back, I think I should have given you space and watched over you from a distance. I was young and thought I had to be there for you, to encourage you. But it probably just added more pressure and irritated you. Maybe we were both too young." I felt grateful for Emily's kindness and understanding, even though I was the one to blame. However, when she said, "You know, when we met again in high school after being apart since kindergarten, I really thought it was destiny. But I guess it wasn't. Can we really be together?" I had no immediate response. That night, we slept in separate rooms, and when I woke up the next morning, Emily was no longer in my apartment. The room felt cold without her, as if the temperature had dropped. I noticed a note from Emily on the table. "If we meet again, I hope we can be together next time." I spotted the note and rushed out of the house, determined to catch up with Emily. Surprisingly, I quickly closed the distance between us as I made my way towards the station. Her eyes were swollen from crying as she walked slowly. I moved in front of her and gently took her hand, offering warmth to her slightly cold fingers before speaking from my heart. "I'm sorry," I began. "I said I'd regret it if I let things slide yesterday, but that was just an excuse. The truth is, I've always loved you and I still do. I was just being a coward yesterday. I was scared. I had hurt you once, and I wondered if I could make you happy again. I also thought I couldn't possibly measure up to your deceased husband. I questioned whether I had the right to say that I wanted to be by your side. I was afraid and I couldn't find the words." I could see that Emily's handwriting on the note had been shaky, likely written while she was in tears. My chest tightened, and I felt an overwhelming urge to run to her. "Emily," I continued, "you once said that our reunion in high school was destiny. I feel the same way. I believe that our meeting here as adults is also destiny. I won't hurt you anymore. I'll cherish you in my own way without comparing myself to anyone else. So I want to be with you. Please give me another chance. Will you date me?" As I finished speaking, I couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. A man over 30 talking about destiny. But it seemed Emily felt the same way. She chuckled and replied, "Sometimes you can be such a romantic, Mark, but I like that about you." Emily and I smiled, locking eyes. I asked, "Would you like to go back to my place again? I'll make you a delicious cup of coffee, and of course, yours will be a latte. Let's talk about the past and the future." "That sounds good," Emily agreed. "I have a lot of things I want to talk about too." Hand in hand, we walked back to my place. Since then, Emily and I have been dating smoothly, and tomorrow, after about a year, we are getting married. Today, we came to visit her previous husband's grave. This was not the first time I had accompanied Emily to do so. Before confessing to Emily, I had doubts about whether I could make her happy as her previous husband had. But I realized that it wasn't about comparison. I accepted that her husband had cherished her, and I decided to cherish Emily in my own way. That's why I visited the grave, to let him rest easy, knowing that I would protect Emily's smile. When Emily asked what I was thinking while paying respects, I kept it a secret, a conversation between men that I couldn't share with Emily. She smirked, saying she was curious but seemed rather happy about it. After visiting the grave, we returned to our new home, a place where we could build our life together. As I was about to make coffee, Emily surprised me by saying she preferred juice. It wasn't something she usually requested, so I grew concerned and asked if she was feeling unwell, but she saw my flustered reaction and gently placed her hand on her stomach, saying, "I'll have to pass on the latte for a while. The caffeine might startle this little one." The realization of her words hit me, and I couldn't contain my joy. I held Emily in my arms, knowing that our baby was due in 7 months. I can't wait for this new chapter in our lives. And that, my dear reader, is our story. Your support and subscription to our channel greatly motivate us to create more content. We look forward to sharing more with you in the next video.